Hello and welcome to Your Keys to College. We are so excited that you are here today to get some tips and tricks and strategies on the college admissions process, because that's specifically what we're going to talk about today. And we have a special guest. If you haven't listened to us before, I'd like to introduce myself. My name is Jen, and
I'm Gina, and we work together to make sure parents and students have all the information they need to work together and successfully navigate the college and financial aid and scholarship processes.
yes, indeed. And today we have a special guest with us. Katie, would you like to introduce yourself?
Yeah, yeah.
Hi, I'm Katie. It's nice to meet you guys by via Zoom and have this chance to chat. I'm a former UVA student, or I guess I'm currently a UVA student. I graduated with my bachelor's in 2021, and now I'm working toward my master's part-time also at UVA or the University of Virginia. But I graduated from high school in 2017 from a medium-sized high school in Northern Virginia area around DC, like the suburbs of DC.
Public high school?
Yes, public high school. I had done 2 years private, ninth and 10th grade, and then 2 years public, because my family moved.
Oh, okay. All
And
right.
Katie was raised around the world. Do you want to just give our listeners a little bit of background on you and your journey up till high school?
It was a mess. I guess my dad worked for the State Department, so we moved all over the world, and we would stay somewhere for like 2 to 3 years and then move. So my schooling was very like segmented. I kind of went through it all. I did Catholic school, I did public school, I did private school. I did not do charter school, so don't ask me about that. But I kind of jumped curriculums, and I was also held back in third grade. I was held back to second grade just because there was a huge gap missing in my academic education. So that, and I wasn't a very fluent reader yet, so I was held back and just kept going through school.
Nice. And then, so that must have added some complications then, especially switching high schools, right? Because you have multiple transcripts to get, you might not have somebody for a letter of recommendation. So you had to do a lot of sort of putting things together. So when did you start like deciding where you were going to go and where you're going to apply and all that?
I honestly had no idea. I remember having this kind of like competition. So I was in the IB AP. I was in a lot of those classes, which are extremely competitive. So I was competing with a lot of my classmates, and we had a running joke where we didn't want to go to an in-state school because we wanted to go somewhere more prestigious. So I had this huge like dream list of schools that I wanted to apply to, like Duke. What else was on there? Duke, Vanderbilt, just a bunch of like high tier schools. And then I started looking at their application fees, and I realized like, oh, I'm only going to be able to apply to probably one of those.
Wow.
And then the rest are going to have to be in state and with a fee waiver, because my school offered a free 3 week fee waiver. So,
Okay. All right. So did you start your junior year?
no, I had no idea where I wanted to go. My parents did take me on some college tours my junior year. So, like, we went to Duke, we went to Vanderbilt, we went to UVA. I also went to Tech. And I was also running track at the time. So, I got to visit a lot of universities through track because we did our meets at a bunch of universities. So, I'm from Virginia. And so, we had a lot of meets in the Norfolk area. So, I think that's Christopher Newport is down there. We had a meet at Virginia Tech. We had a meet at Liberty University. So I also got to see a bunch of college campuses through that throughout my junior and senior year. I didn't consider, like, I didn't start thinking about where I wanted to go, like where I actually wanted to attend until maybe my summer of before my senior year.
Okay.
And how much stress did that cause?
I put it off. I like didn't think about it. I very much like compartmentalized the college process and was like, I am just gonna write my applications and apply to as many schools as I possibly can. I applied to like 15. And then I was like, I'll decide when I get my acceptance letters.
I just have another question about that. Like, so you're a highly accomplished student, yet you really didn't piece together an organized and structured college search or application process. How did that feel knowing you had so much talent, you had accomplished so much, you'd worked so hard, but the idea of the next step, you were just kind of figuring it all out on the fly?
How did it feel?
Yeah.
It just felt like very overwhelming. I just remember, so I was a part of like a small group where we talked, it was like a religious small group, but we talked about like what was going on in our lives. And it was specifically like me and a couple other seniors. And we were all just like not really sure about what's to come. And that was like the only outlet I had for processing those emotions. And I was pretty quiet the whole time. Like I kind of listened to everybody else talk and didn't express my emotions as much because it was like very daunting. It was like standing on the edge of like a cliff and you're jumping into the dark and you don't know how low or high the bottom is. So it's just it was like very I just felt like very confused and overwhelmed.
Yeah. And Katie, thank you for saying that. It's not easy to say that on a podcast or a video, that's going to be out there for other students to help other students and parents. But it's the message here is to parents. Number one, if your child is in the same boat as Katie's, it's going to be okay. We're all going to be able to get to a place that makes sense and that is a natural progression of what you've put in during high school and where you're headed as far as your career goals and aspirations. The second thing is a note to students who think you're alone in feeling this way, in not knowing what comes next, in that absolute vulnerable moment in your life where you are looking, out at a big abyss and saying, what in the world is going to come next? It's okay to feel that way because there's so many students. Like if we interviewed a friend of Katie's and a friend of her friends, the students are all going to basically be saying the same kinds of things, that's the way that it feels senior year.
Yeah. So Katie, so you had a group of friends that you could at least sort of listen to and you knew were in the same boat, but uh, and how did your family, your parents help? What kind of help was available at the school, and where did you specifically find the best help?
My mom she did her very best. So she went to college. She and my dad both graduated from a state school in Wisconsin, but that was like 30 plus years ago. And so she had no idea what the college admissions process and the college landscape was like in Virginia, much less today. So she like went in every week, like 2 or 3 times a week to help our school guidance or our school college counselor. So we had a school college counselor who was amazing. I don't know how she did it, but she won a ton of awards too for like just being so cool. And so my mom would go in and help her structure her classroom and like help her file away pamphlets and like listen in on her meetings as she helped other students like complete college applications. And she started doing that my junior year. So she had some knowledge about the college process from just like almost being like a teacher's aide with this college counselor, which with her ulterior motive of like trying to help me get to college. And she was very lucky because she was a stay-at-home mom, so she was able to like have the time to do that and like have the time to kind of just be in the class and like take that time. But anyway, so she was very supportive. She didn't pressure me a ton because she knew that like I was gonna get it done. I was gonna go to college. I was gonna go somewhere I wanted to go. Um, but she kind of was just like there if I ever had questions, which I didn't know what questions to ask. So is a little tough. There's a bit of balance there.
Yeah, I love that though. I love that you had an awesome college counselor in your high school to help. And I think that your mom sort of helping her out was just such a, like a little spy, kind of like, oh, I'm taking away these tidbits, and then I'm taking
She
it.
was a spy. She'd come home and tell us everything.
I love that. I
Oh,
love
Katie, we need to fill out the FAFSA in October because otherwise all the money's going to go away. They give away all the money. She's like, she's learning all these little things that she wouldn't have otherwise known. So, like, especially with those things, she was on top of it.
that.
She's
Hmm.
like, Katie, where are you applying? We need to fill out the FAFSA today. We're like, okay.
It's like,
And as a plug to what we do, what Jen and I do, that's exactly what we do for parents. We do the same thing. We give them the cheat codes, right? And so it's like they're spies in the admission in the school counseling office, because we're giving them the timelines and helping parents understand what comes next so that they can do for their student what your mom did for you through really pretty heroic efforts on your mom's part. I never realized that she went through those great lengths to get access to the information that you needed.
yeah, yeah. So, is there anything that you look back on that you would do differently?
I would start thinking about what I wanted. So for me, it was just scary. So I pushed it off. Like
Mm.
I didn't want to think about it. I didn't want to process it until it was happening. So I kind of just like pushed it off until the last minute. So I would have taken my college search more seriously. I would have looked at schools I was more interested in by like looking at my hobbies instead of prestige. Um, I think that really matters. I also would have tried to have a healthier mindset when like early decision came around and when all my friends that were student athletes like knew where they wanted to go to college like beginning of their senior year, and I had no idea until what is it, March 1st they released decisions,
Yeah,
or April 1st, I don't even remember, but whatever day they released it,
throughout that, yeah.
yeah, that was the day I found out all my decisions. I had no idea that I got into a bunch of schools until that day. So it's like very intimidating hearing everybody else's decisions kind of come in before mine. So I would have definitely applied early through early action if I had known about it. Um, and honestly, yeah, just had a better mindset about where my friends were getting into.
And what would you say, like, what would you say worked really well for you besides having your mom be the spy?
Um, what worked well for me? I took school very seriously. So I was like a fairly good writer. I always read comments on like papers when teachers turned it back. I didn't just look at the grade and throw it in the trash. So I think like academically speaking, I was very prepared for my college essays and for like my college admissions process, and I knew what I had to turn in. Um, I was a little bit like not as aware of other things.
Katie, what guidance do you have to a senior who's panicking right now, who's in the same situation, who didn't know about the early deadline, who isn't sure about scholarships, doesn't know much about the financial aid process, who's scrambling to get all this done on their own and having that sinking feeling of, oh my gosh, I've got this huge ship to hold up and I don't know what I'm supposed to be doing?
Okay. So if you are freaking out right now, or you are the type of person that will be freaking out in a couple months when your applications are due, I would definitely find help. Like you cannot go through this alone. And so whether that's like for me, like my family, my mom, my college, my high school college guidance counselor, those were all like really helpful resources. But I know that not everybody has like people that are as informed or as helpful or like as there for them as like the people that I had when I was going through it. So I would definitely find help. And I know, I mean, I'm on this podcast, so Keys is a great resource. I've worked with both of you guys for a while now, and I've known you both through different channels. But I would definitely reach out to you guys. You guys are so talented. I know from my work with Gina, Gina's so good at breaking things down into small, manageable chunks. So you do not have to feel overwhelmed by like, oh my gosh, college applications. Like they're so daunting, they're so overwhelming. I know I applied to like 15 schools, that's way too many. So Gina will break it down for you if you work with her like individually. It's all very student centered, and be prepared to like really get at what you want, because just saying I want to go to this college because it's prestigious is not going to be enough for Jen and Gina. Like they're not going to care if you think like, oh, well, it's going to really look good when I go out and get a job. Like, no, they're not going to care about that. They want you to succeed and do well and find a college that is the right fit for you and for your interests. So either you need to challenge yourself to get at like what matters to you, so that you're not making a decision based on like prestige or what outside pressures, whether it's like kids at school, because that was a major pressure for me. That's why I was applying to all these Ivies or wanted to, was because I wanted to look good in front of my friends, or like be that one that made it. And so I think like they would really push you away from that and into like how to manage the added pressures that come when you get into college, because it's not just about making it, it's about succeeding when you're there. And so they're gonna help equip you with like the skills to like manage peer pressure, because that does not go away. Like the feeling of like needing to succeed all the time, the feeling of like comparing yourselves to other people. And like I'll tell you, when I was in college my first semester, there was this girl that talked non-stop about her biology grades. She was on my hall, that's all she talked about. And I was like, I don't want to be talking about question number 32 and whether it was A or B. Like I'm eating my food in my whatever it is, dining hall. Like we're done. That was like 2 weeks ago. And so she was just like so stressed all the time, and it made me stressed because I felt like I needed to be studying, I needed to be doing this and that and everything. And so it was just understanding when enough is enough and like you need to take care of yourself. So you guys would be really good at that. And if you're not able to go to Keys College, find somebody who will support you in all those things, because that's what you need. Is that too strong? I feel like that was a very strong thing to say.
No, I do think, I think people need help. I mean, I think there's this general thought out there that like, I should know how to do this. It's just writing an essay. It's just filling in the blanks. It's just putting down the activities I engaged in. But it, there's just more to it than that. It's more nuanced, and there's just so many steps. And if you're working with someone who knows the steps and can, like you said so nicely, like Gina does, Gina breaks it down in little bite-sized pieces so that it's not overwhelming. I mean, I just think that I think that if somebody can find somebody to help them do that, whether that's us or somebody else, I just think that makes the process more fun and easier to get through and less stressful for everybody, parents and the students.
Yeah, and I have two things about that. One is it needs to be purposeful. And the other, well, I have three things. And the other is being adrift on a raft in the ocean is very, very different than having a power boat, and an engine and a motor to go where you want. You're in the water just the same, but like what direction you're taking and how much control you have over that process is really what we're talking about. It's okay to be adrift, but you certainly would much rather be in a power boat where you can direct, your course based on your interests, your talents, and your goals. And then the other is like Jen and I were talking with a parent yesterday, and the parent was kind of like embarrassed that she didn't know this process as well as we do, and that she didn't have the expertise in this area. And my answer to that was, I don't know how to be a surgeon, right? Jen doesn't know how to be an accountant. Like, we don't know how to be lawyers. So this is what we do, and it's what we do really well. So it's okay that a parent might not know this skill set, but that's because it's not their profession. And it doesn't matter if you're a carpenter. I can't be a carpenter. I wish I could be, but I don't have the background. So it's the same idea. A parent isn't supposed to know all there is about the college process or the financial aid scholarship paying for college, how to get your student prepared, how to get a student like Katie the life skills so that when her roommate obnoxiously asks, what she's going to be doing in 30 years, she doesn't feel bad about herself. So all those things are things that we do. A lot of other professionals do them as well. So I would say just get past feeling uncomfortable about not being everything and just really focus on getting the support that you need to make sure that the student is in the driver's seat.
And on a second note, kind of another thing that came to mind while you were talking, I think having somebody read your college essays is extremely important, getting feedback on them. I did not receive any feedback, but with that said, it can be very harmful if somebody's reading them that you are not that you are uncomfortable with them reading it. Does
Mhm.
that make sense? So basically, I would have been very uncomfortable with my parents reading my college essay. I never asked them, they never asked to read them. I'm thankful for that because I was somewhat vulnerable in those essays and I didn't necessarily want them to like read that side of me or like kind of get at that. Like it would have just been like not the not the way to go. So whether that's like finding a friend that will read them for you because they know you or they know your voice or like they can just give you some feedback um, is really important. And I know Gina is so good at giving feedback. Personally, I've asked her to read several cover letters for work, and she's read them. She's helped me with my resume. This is all while I was an undergrad, like preparing for my career, and so I can speak to that and definitely like all the help that you've given me and the way that you like try to help me show my voice and there's no judgment. Like that's just so important because I think like a lot of parents want to read their kids' essays and that can be like really nice because you're showing support, but it can also be like really scary if you're the kid having your parent read it and like feeling like they might tweak it a lot or like kind of take out your voice. Um, so no offense to parents out there. I know that that's not your goal if you're listening to this. But that was just like a very and oh gosh, I hope my parents don't listen to this. But I just like I hope that yeah, you help your kid find somebody that they feel safe sharing their essay with so that they feel seen and they also feel like understood, but they're getting the feedback they need to submit like the best version of what they have to offer.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's
That's
hard.
great
It's hard as
advice.
a parent not to want to be the focus of that essay. I tell you, because I mean, you remember when my son Brian had his first interview, he did we had a program together that we co-designed and we co implement. And he got for an interview with the news and he didn't mention me. And it wasn't all about me as his mom and his parent. And I was highly offended. I'm like, dude, this this interviews it should be about your love for me and how much I've influenced your life and how you wouldn't be here without me. And it's so hard not to get caught up in that as a parent. And I think you're saying it really well. It's not easy to mingle the relationship between a student, a parent, a child, a young adult. All that gets really blurry throughout this entire process. And I think you said it really well.
Yeah, I agree. I agree. Show your essay to somebody, get some feedback, and pick someone you trust to give you truthful feedback.
And Jen is the English major. So she makes sure I'm a little bit more of the content. Jen is absolutely brilliant at the structure and the appropriateness of punctuation, which, is something that I definitely do not excel at.
Yeah.
And knowing Jen, you're really good at also teaching it. Like it's not like you're inserting that because I think it's so important that like a student's voice comes across authentically and sometimes punctuation is a part of their voice.
Hmm.
And so like if they don't know past tense or present tense or like if English isn't their first language, like Jen is so good at like teaching that and just like helping them learn it as they're writing their college essay. So it's not in addition to, it's like a process, part of the process.
Yeah.
And so it's important too that like punctuation can say a lot about a student's voice and like the language they use and you guys help to like have that shine through
Mhm.
or like help like the student develop their voice as they're going through the college essay process.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you. Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, we have certainly covered a lot in our conversation today. Thanks, Katie, for joining us and being so open about your experiences and the difficult patches as well as what worked for you. Thank you. And thank you for listening to us today. We hope you got some very good information that you can work together as students, as family, to use in your own process of getting ready for college. You can always find us at keystocollege.org. And we'll put that link in the show notes. And you can also find us by emailing us at K2C, that's the letter K, the number 2, and the letter C, at keystocollege.org. And we are happy to answer your questions. So feel free to send us an email. We'll answer your questions. You can also sign up on the webpage to get our weekly newsletter where we'll share some tips and tricks and let you know when our next podcast is coming out and what the topic's going to be. So thank you again. We really appreciate your listening, and we will talk to you again soon with more tips. Thank you.